Welcome, everybody, to another financial aid workshop presented by the Montana University System, the College Access team here. My name is Derek Calvert. I work for the Montana Educational Talent Search here and serving students across the state. And I get the opportunity to be able to host some of these workshops, answering questions regarding financial aid, the FAFSA, all of the above. And really with this workshop, we're hoping that we can give you a general outline for next steps, assuming that you've completed the FAFSA. So if you haven't completed the FAFSA, stay tuned, keep watching this video, but make sure that you go right away to go complete the FAFSA. Tomorrow is the priority deadline for most of the schools in Montana. So keep that in mind. You could still apply for FAFSA after the priority deadline, but there's a greater chance of getting some more aid if you do complete it before tomorrow. So I guess with all that in mind, we have a special guest here today. We have the director of the University of Montana Financial Education Department, Julie Heaton. Julie, how long have you worked for the financial education department there?
About 3 years at UM.
Oh, excellent. So we have an expert here, able to share all the knowledge that she has. So I guess just to jump in, next steps after completing the FAFSA, kind of some things to expect. If you're, like me, you like to kind of look ahead and plan ahead to know, okay, what should I expect? What do I need to do? In many regards. So I'll try to help you out here, try to give you a little bit of a plan. But yeah, I guess let's just get jumping in. So there is a little bit of a timeline that you can follow and keep track of when it comes to financial aid. So, like I said, submitting your FAFSA in the fall. Awesome time to do it, before the priority deadline tomorrow. But you can submit the FAFSA throughout the entire year. It doesn't have to be just in the fall. I just put this on here, because it's a recommended time to do that. And then at some point, during it, all depending on the college and that you're going to and or sending your financial aid to, and then and all depending on when you submit your FAFSA, you'll receive a financial award package, sometime during the winter or spring. And like I said, that all depends on the college and when you complete your FAFSA. So obviously, once you receive your package, you can start accepting your financial award package. And Julie, I know you shared something with me earlier just regarding accepting the financial award package. Would you want to share that with everybody listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this is like the suggested timeline of when you submit everything. You can fill out the FAFSA at any point, even if it's during the aid year that you need it. But if you submit it before the priority deadline, you get first shot at some of these limited funding opportunities, mostly need-based aid. When you do submit your FAFSA, the first award packages can start going out in the winter after Thanksgiving. It depends on the school. But then once you submit it, the school's going to be hard at work putting together a financial award package for you, which is going to tell you what they offer you. Most of the time, most new students are going to get that sometime in the winter or spring, depending on it, the timeline of when they filled out the FAFSA and got it to the school. At that point, it's just sort of sitting there available to you whenever you want to make a decision about what you want from that aid package. And so it can be that you get it and from the beginning you're going to want to borrow this loan and not that loan, or you're going to need this much money, and you can accept it as soon as you get it. But you can also just kind of know that as information, store that away until you get your bill, and only borrow the exact amount that you need to pay your bill. So it's really up to you. It gives you a lot of time to kind of go over a budget, which I know you're going to look at later, Derek. But the award package is yours to accept or decline pretty much anytime before a semester ends.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I guess a question that I was thinking. So if somebody is offered, in their financial award package, they're offered like a grant and a scholarship, would you recommend accepting that right away, or waiting as long as until they find out, the cost?
It really depends on it depends on if they know they're going to, what their projected need is, right? So and how the school also does their aid. So a lot of schools will not put any aid into the student's account, including grants, if the student has not made a decision on other types of aid offered. So like there could be a Pell Grant awarded, but that might not show up as real money in the student's account until they make a decision about loans. So this timeline is really correct in showing that like in the springtime or summer, which is when a lot of schools post their bills for the fall, you're going to ideally have made a decision on your aid by then and submitted it, especially if you have grants or scholarships like you're mentioning, Derek, because then you can have that grant or scholarship come into your account. So sometimes you might have to make a decision like as soon as the bill comes out, just so that you can kind of lock in that funding and get it into your student account. But you can always change your mind about other non-need based forms of aids like aid like loans, and go back to your financial aid office and make a correction of what you wanted to accept. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers my question completely. And yeah, I mean, from the sounds of it, I mean, really, we just, you don't have to accept your financial award package. You can wait, and it can even be just more recommended. Once you receive your registration, once you receive the registration bill, and putting together your budget, figuring out how much you need, then accepting your financial award, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to go away. It's going to still be there.
Yeah, it'll still be there. Now, it can things that can adjust it would be like the amount of why we're saying basically like you can wait if you're making adjustments over the summer. So like if you dropped some classes and you were no longer a full-time student, that can affect things like the Pell Grant, and the amount of aid you're offered. So sometimes it's good to wait until that final, you know what classes you're in and you get a bill for them and then you can wait. But if you're kind of like, no, I'm going to be a full-time student, I know I'm going to need this and this and this, you can go ahead and accept it as soon as you get it. It really just depends on the individual and what their anticipated costs are going to be and how well they know that anticipated cost when they get their award package. But yeah, I'd say a good timeline would be like when the bills come out, which in most schools is going to be sometime in the summer. Does it, or most MUS schools, does it in July. So I say when the bill comes out, go ahead and run your budget then, and then accept aid and finalize.
Yeah, perfect. And so I think that's super helpful, for if you're watching this right now, or watching the video on the follow up, keep that in mind as you're looking to accept your financial award package. Yeah, so I mean, looking at this timeline, all of this, really it will come down to the summer where you'll end up uh, paying for the classes with your financial aid, or if you are working to saving up money, paying for those classes with your own funds as well. um, and so what do we find in the financial aid financial award package? And so in this financial award package, you're going to find grants. I know we've mentioned grants, Pell Grant, Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, or just a couple of grants, scholarships, with a few scholarships listed here that are found within the MUS, and there's going to be even more scholarships, a lot more scholarships. There's so many scholarships out there that you can apply to. That next Thursday, we're actually going to do a scholarship information night, to get you started, hopefully to give you more information on scholarships, because scholarships are so effective and helpful in paying for schooling. Uh, Also, in your financial award package, you might find a work study. And so that would be money earned from working for a job. And then you might find loans. And so these loans would be direct subsidized loans, direct unsubsidized loans, and direct parent plus loans. If you watched our information night 2 weeks ago, we learned that subsidized loans are loans that do not accrue interest while you're in school, and while unsubsidized loans do accrue interest. But on both of those, you do not have to make payments while you're in school, at least more than half time. And then the direct parent plus loan, as well as an additional federal loan that's offered. And so with this financial award package, it's really there to help you estimate your cost of attendance, and it provides you with these financial aid options that we just went through. And so the cost of attendance that this is helping to estimate comes in different parts: the tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, and then transportation and other miscellaneous costs. So, the financial aid offices at the schools that you're applying to are considering, okay, what is the cost of attendance? They have a general outline, and it's generally going to be more than what you need, but it's going to be. Am I saying that right, Julie? It's generally going to be more than you need.
Well, need is a hard word here. What they're trying to estimate is what your need is based on the traditional cost of attendance things. Plenty of students find that they need more of different types of aid than they're offered. But what the Department of Education is doing, and the financial aid office is estimating, is when you add up the total cost of school, so that's tuition fees, room and board, books and supplies, and then transportation and miscellaneous, they have a calculation for estimating at your school how much that's going to cost you. And so I think what you're getting at is the amount that it shows. Let's say it says, $24,000 a year. That's not necessarily what your bill is going to be, right? Your bill might be less than that. Let's say you live off campus, your books you're going to buy on Amazon, and your transportation fees are highly overestimated by this generic calculation. That's fine. A lot of people see that large number and they think that's what the school is going to charge them. And in most cases, the school's never going to charge them that exact amount, but that is the budget that's set for the student. And from that, they'll meet that aid with a combination of these different types of aid that you list here. So don't necessarily worry if your estimated cost of attendance. It will show you that in the award package and say all of the cost of attendance list there. If the amount that adds up to is not what you were anticipating, then go ahead and look through that list and see, well, what things here are different or that I'm not using the school for. The school's not going to necessarily charge me for that because I pay for them in another way.
Right, and I thought that I'd bring up the cost of attendance. Since you're at and this is definitely not going to be the same cost at all schools. This is just the one example. So it's some of these can vary greatly whether you're going to a 4-year college, 2-year trade school, all of the above. So there's with this, this is just the 2022, 2023 cost of attendance for 12 or more credits, enrollment status. And so this lists, tuition fees, room and board, books and supplies, a loan fee allowance, being an indirect cost, some of that, transportation and miscellaneous. And so you might find this on your financial award package as your cost of attendance, and like what you said, you might not need $1,500 for transportation. If you don't have a car, you might not need that. And although, that could also be transportation home and things like that. So you want to consider everything. And then miscellaneous things, that could be anything from a Netflix subscription to getting some extra clothes, that you need at Ross or, TJ Maxx or something like that.
Yeah. The important thing is here, they're trying to estimate what it's going to cost you potentially, and then they're going to try and offer you aid to cover that car cost. So that total at the bottom, I think for an in-state saying 23,292. That's the number that the financial aid office at your school, if, whatever that number totals to, they're going to offer you enough aid to get close to or reach that number almost exactly sometimes.
Yeah, perfect. So I guess with all that in mind, I'm going to exit out of here so I can get back to my slides. Uh, with all that in mind, this is really what your financial award package is coming to. I also wanted to point out tuition waivers that Montana students can be eligible for. So just don't want anybody to miss out on opportunities. Some of these require you to fill out the FAFSA, while others, I don't believe that you have to complete the FAFSA, but there are other steps in order to apply for those tuition waivers. And Julie, maybe would these be found on the financial award package?
No, generally not. The best piece of advice I have for waivers is that you just contact your financial aid office early if you think you're eligible for one of these. Because a lot of times, like you said, they might need a FAFSA on record to demonstrate need, or they might need paperwork that allows the financial aid office to discuss directly with, say, your tribe, to make sure that you have the proper paperwork. So just ask your financial aid office about the waiver that you think you're eligible for, and then they'll tell you the proper next steps. But they wouldn't necessarily, because the aid office, anything you put on your FAFSA usually doesn't result in an automatic tuition waiver. It's usually an additional process.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Is there anything else that you might want to add regarding the financial aid award package before we go on?
That this is federal aid here that we're mostly talking about, right? These so this is not an exhaustive list of grants, work study, and loans are what the federal aid process is going to give you, what you're eligible for on that federal level. There are local scholarships. So that scholarships piece is kind of the separate but very important step. So filling out the FAFSA does not mean you've applied for every scholarship available to you. It just means that you've submitted your federal application for aid. There are so many companies and private scholarships and state or local scholarships. So although the FAFSA is the best place to start because most people end up using some of their federal aid, and it's worth throwing your hat in the ring for those federal grants like the Pell Grant, which is $6,495 for those that are eligible for that. But if you get an award package that you're like, wow, I'm really not eligible for anything but loans, that does not mean that you're not eligible for a scholarship somewhere. It just means that federally, based on those Department of Ed standards, you're not qualifying as need-based.
Yes, I agree completely. So please tune in next week, next Thursday, December 9th, for just some hints, some tips on applying to scholarships. I do believe it will be helpful for anybody tuning in and looking for scholarships. I wish that I would have applied for some scholarships, more scholarships in college, because I think they can be very incredibly helpful.
Yeah, and keep in mind too that scholarships that a lot of people think of as national or too big for them, for example, often have regional requirements. So the example I always use is Walmart. Walmart has regional requirements for how they disperse their scholarships, or at least they did a little bit ago. I haven't checked it recently, but a lot of those big scholarships have that, so that they disperse them fairly, across the country and across different communities. And so think about that as well, that it's like, oh, well, I'm not a big enough deal for the institution that is Walmart to give me money. that's not necessarily true. I remember I got a scholarship from Walmart when I went to school, and there's electric companies in Montana that give scholarships, things like that. So just think about, your community, what's in your community, and what might be available to you, and don't leave stones unturned.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we are going to jump right forward uh, into budgeting. And so, budgeting being, as this says, creating a spending plan. You have a certain amount of income and then a certain amount of expenses. And so creating a spending plan and how you're going to go about spending your income. And this is a must. If you want to be in control of your money, uh, design a realistic plan for spending your, I love this, limited resources, because they're limited, right? Unless, well, it, yeah, I mean, no matter who you are, it's going to be limited resources, uh, and be flexible to adapt, to all the circumstances that come with life, college life, everything, all of the above. Uh, so with us, you want to identify all income sources, whatever that might be. And with like I look at the financial reward package. That would be an income. If as long as depending on how you set up your budget, but it would be an income source if you're looking at, okay, I need to pay for tuition and fees. I need this. I need to pay for room and board. You would include your financial reward package with that in order to make sure that you're covering all your costs there. List your fixed and flexible expenses. So fixed being things that don't change, that they're going to happen every month. Like if you're paying for a phone bill, you're going to be paying that every month. But a flexible expense might be more of like an entertainment expense. Yeah, it's something that I guess, I think of like Netflix in a way, has different options, even though that would be a fixed expense too, because it happens every month. But if you're looking at getting clothes, or you need new shoes, or need to do some car repairs, or things like that could be flexible expenses. Setting up a monthly budget, and even a semester budget, to determine where you need to spend your money, how you need to do it, and then when you're doing it, actually to add the actual transactions that you do. This is one of the hardest steps for me to put into action. Is I can create a budget and be like, okay, I make this amount. I need to have this amount to spend for all my expenses. But then at the end of the day, I don't include all the times that I went to eat out at McDonald's or Burger King, and I don't include all of these different transactions that I would need to include on my budget in order for it to be accurate. So make sure that you're including all of those, just every transaction that you have, and then review and modify as needed. All depending on changing life, and if you get a second job, to be able, to help pay for all your expenses, or if you don't need that job, modify your monthly budget. Anything that you would add there, Julie?
Yeah, just that, like you said, a budget is a living, breathing document. So a budget, we always say avoid fairy tale budgeting in our office, which means that you just make a list of what you plan to spend and then never actually track or follow that budget. Then it's just a piece of paper, right? So as things change, as your rent goes up, or as an expense comes in for new tires that you didn't anticipate, make sure that you're putting that into your budget and you're updating it on I would say at least a monthly basis, or at least as income or expenses change. And then the other thing is, for a lot of students, especially new freshmen who are usually required to live on campus, or if you're doing a lot of your expenses up front with a university, where you're paying for essentially the next 3 months of your life all at once, like a meal plan, a room, this is a great time to actually start budgeting because it's quite easy, right? As long as you can meet that first bill payment, then what you're really tracking from there are those little flexible expenses, maybe supplemental food, a Netflix subscription, like you said, these small things. So just make sure that you start practicing and building this budgeting habit because that's what it is. It's just a habit that you can get better at as you go along.
And I think that leads super well into my next point of why budget. It's, is it, I like pros and cons lists to be able to determine, okay, should I do this or should I not? So I think for budgeting, the pros definitely outweigh the cons. It helps you understand where you are financially. Just, are you making it? Are you able to make all your expenses, or are you spending a lot more than you need to be spending? It helps you to learn financial management skills, for the future, because it does, spending money, managing finances does not get any easier. It's always it's going to be, well, I take that back. I think if you're doing well on a budget, I think it can get easier. Um, but what I mean is, uh, what I mean is that you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to keep doing it. There's probably going to be even more expenses as life and time goes on. There's just going to be a lot more financial things that come up, and by starting this now and doing this now, you're going to learn those skills to be able to adapt. Uh, and then you avoid serious consequences from poorly managed finances. When you know where your spending is going, how much money you have, you can avoid way overspending and finding yourself in a desperate situation, and which nobody wants to be in. The one con that I found of creating a budget, and Julie, maybe you have some more, but the one con that I find is that it just takes a little bit of time. It takes however minutes, whether it's once a week, if you're doing it once a month, it might take a little bit longer, but the more that you're doing it, the more consistent that you're doing it, it just takes a little bit of time. And that's about it.
Yeah, I'd say that's true. Like I said, it's a developing of habit. So we have to be intentional about developing them. But I'd even argue that the time that you put into making a really solid and real budget, not a fairy tale budget, but a real budget for yourself, you save the time or time and stress when you go, oh man, there's no money for this expense, or this budget wasn't honest enough, right? So that's a lot of money and time and stress that can happen for people when they don't budget well. So you're sort of taking a little bit of your habitual time at the beginning, so that you can avoid these stressful moments when the pocketbook gets a little lean.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so budgeting can just be super beneficial, especially as you're looking at, uh, paying for college, looking at your financial reward package. At the end of the day, budgeting is going to be a huge friend of yours, and I hope that this has convinced you. So, with that in mind, there's a few helpful links that I just like to share out there. I'm going to put these into the description of this video so that you can just easily click on these and check them out. There's a link to the studentaid.gov website, so you can find out more, get more resources for financial aid, FAFSA, things like that. And then 3 MUS pages for scholarships, on-campus supports, such as TRIO student support services, things like that, and then just a general outline of, the different universities and colleges in the MUS system of tuitions and fees. So please check those out. But overall, I just hope this was helpful. Please comment with any questions that you might have. I'd be happy to try to answer them. If not, I'll reach out to Julie with questions myself so that I can get those answered and help you guys out. But thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Julie, for joining us as well. And we will with that, we'll end the broadcast. See ya.